Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Population around 47,000. Home to a dead mall, a mercury factory, and the birthplace of King Camp Gillette, the inventor of the safety razor. Also home to Don Gortsky, the world record holder for eating the most Big Macs, and where Colin Kaepernick spent most of his childhood. If you've never heard of Fond du Lac, you're not alone. It's here. It's also the home to Philomena, a young boho chic fashion enthusiast, and Andy, aka AV Super Sunshine, an eccentric musician still chasing his rock and roll dream.
One of those people you can't figure out. I'm a star and baby goodbye.
AV and Philly fell in love about 6 years ago, got married, and still live in Fond du Lac today. I should probably introduce myself. My name's Jared. I'm a film director and producer. I grew up in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which was just 3 hours away from the alleged Roswell UFO crash site. But now I call Beverly Hills home. A few months ago, AV called me up. He said, "Hey Jared, can I trust you with something?" I said, "Yeah." He tells me around 6 years ago, he and Philomena were abducted by aliens. He said, "I want you to do a film about what happened to us." I had done some music videos for AV and Philomena in the past, but this project was different. I told AV I needed to think about it.
I've seen a lot of UFO headlines and articles recently, including some featuring UFO videos supposedly shot by our military pilots from some sort of recent Pentagon release. So UFOs and aliens seem to be a hot subject right now. Ever since man has looked up into the stars, he has seen strange objects in the skies. But the search for proof of extraterrestrial intelligence has produced disappointing results. The military has been especially secretive about its advances, while always searching for the perfect weapon. But when it comes to matters concerning the welfare of our planet, the living beings on it, or potential clues to the mysteries of the universe, many believe it should be our right to know. The best so-called evidence has only been a few photographs and film clips, but now all that's about to change.
A few weeks passed, and then an email came in. It was from AV and Philomena. They sent me an artsy mock-up home film they created to help me better understand what had happened to them. I downloaded it and watched. Check it out.
Alien abduction. Why did they let us remember? Philomena bought concert tickets for my birthday. I didn't want to go. I felt an unwanted event was going to happen. Something we didn't want.
AV had been depressed for so long. I just wanted him to have some fun.
We stopped for coffee at a truck stop on the way home. We still had an hour's drive left and were wide awake when an unusual set of streaking headlights passed in the opposite lanes.
Everything suddenly looked so creepy.
When we turned forward again, the car was approaching a 2-lane underpass, beyond which was darkness. There wasn't a star in the sky beyond that bridge. The last thing I remember before the event was the car coming even with the first set of overhead lanes.
Yes.
We're not sure who became conscious first.
I think he did.
I was draped over the front end of some sort of machine. The machine itself was draped in darkness.
Like a black velour blanket, but the fibers were made of darkness.
My arms and legs were stretched and held by an invisible force. My body was vertical and aimed at a large screen, about 10 meters away. The screen was about 10 meters high and about 30 meters across, and was draped in the same darkness as the machine. We could make out shapes of beings behind it.
And we could hear voices.
So many voices at the same time that they masked each other like ocean surf.
Instead of human voices, it sounded like thoughts.
Like an ocean of thought waves from a sea of minds. I wasn't able to look at anything except the screen, but amazingly I could see everything around with some sort of 360-degree peripheral vision.
It was like we had eyes in the back of our heads.
Philomena was standing next to me on my right, frozen, like some official Earth witness or host person. Like she was Vanna White and I was strapped to a vertical wheel of fortune. The floor was cloaked in darkness, same as the machine and screen. To our right and left and above our heads, outer space, with planets and stars visible.
It was like we were in a transparent room, surrounded by deep space.
Clear, flexible tubing was inserted into me and lay trailing off into the darkness. Like the kind hospital IVs use, except these had light particles flowing through them. Some tubes had particles flowing into me and some out.
There were dozens. You couldn't see where they ended.
I swear they were pumping energy into me, mixing it with something inside me, and then light piping it back out to their entire planet. It was like I was powering something, or entertainment, or both.
It felt like we were being televised, and this was a big event.
When I was given the name AV Super Sunshine, that's when things started to fit. I have conscious memory for about 5 hours of time, hanging there like a piece of museum art, waiting for the curator to come by and straighten me. It was a long 5 hours.
I felt calm, but yes, at least 5 hours of Earth time.
I have just a vague memory of being unhooked from the machine, but what happened next was amazing.
What happened next stole our attention.
Re-entry. It felt like we were dropping at hyperspeed. The whole trip, me and Philomena were facing each other, eyes locked. Everything around us was blurred and moving fast as lightning. But we were in slow motion, inside some sort of delivery pod.
I remember thinking, a path to freedom.
Not freedom from the aliens, no. They've infiltrated our belief system. Philomena refers to another type of freedom. When we arrived back, the vehicle had traveled into the underpass, completely hidden from aerial view by the upper lanes. The car had drifted into the left lane and was aimed 45 degrees off course, about to hit the concrete bridge supports dividing the opposite lanes of interstate. The whole scene looked frozen in time, like an action movie still.
They placed us in the car together. I remember being extremely calm, like I was drugged.
As soon as our bodies were in position, the scene started in real time again, like hitting the play button on a frozen movie frame. I remember being slid into my seat, foot to the accelerator, hands to the steering wheel. My head position was the last to be adjusted. As soon as it was turned away from Philomena and forward, we were driving at highway speed.
During the entire re-entry, it felt like we were in slow motion. But it seemed like only a split second of time had passed.
I didn't even have to think about the adjustments to get us back on course. It was like the movements were pre-programmed into my muscle memory. It was like something was guiding the car. We were in a short wheelbase, two-door purple Geo-Trekker soft top, traveling at 65 miles an hour. The adjustments required to avoid a fatal accident made the driver's side tires almost come off the ground. We exited the underpass in the left lane, probably looking slightly out of control for the first couple hundred yards. Find that satellite footage.
Normally I would have been panicking, but I was extremely calm.
I thought to myself, my God, we had just experienced a satellite invisible moving car extraction and a full-on, memories included, alien abduction. And I had a witness who saw what they've been doing to me. The first thing I said to Philomena was, tell me, what just happened?
Something inside of me was intrigued. For some reason, I just wanted to know more. A week later, Avi and Philly showed up in Beverly Hills to tell me their story. As crazy as this may seem, what you're about to watch is real.
Just here with Avi and Philly. We're just talking about.
Well, you can't film us without our sunglasses on.
Yeah, okay.
Let's talk about the evening of the abduction, okay?
Okay.
All right, so you go to the show, right, and you had a good time. What was the band that you saw?
Death Cab for Cutie. I wanted to buy Andy tickets because he's a musician. I don't know, I just thought he'd like to go out with me.
Where were they playing?
Milwaukee.
How long of a drive is it to Milwaukee from?
It's about an hour and 20.
You guys drink anything? Smoke
No.
anything? Nothing.
No.
Who's driving?
Andy is.
So the concert ended at like around what time?
11, maybe 11:15.
And then what did you do right after the show?
Got out of the parking garage and we went and found a little diner, like a gas station diner.
Do you remember what you ate?
I don't remember, but I know I had coffee because I drank that.
So you're done with the coffee and then it's time to hit the road. And you're gonna drive back home?
Right.
Okay. And at this point, you guys are living together or not?
No, not yet. We're
No.
just going on dates.
What was the night like?
It was cloudy. There was no rain.
Were there a lot of people on the road that late at night?
Not many. It was us and then maybe one car.
And what car were you driving?
It was a Geo Tracker.
Geo Tracker. Sometimes it's a convertible. Sometimes it's a rugged 4x4. But it's always an adventure.
So how long were you on the road before the abduction happened?
Like 10, 15 minutes.
You know, when you go under a two-lane underpass, and it's a divided highway 2 and 2, you know how they put the cement pillars between to keep the two lanes up ahead? And it looked like they had those construction lights up, just yeah, I can see two crafts, the crafts we were on and another craft.
They think they got abducted by aliens, like for real. Yes.
Both of them?
Yes.
Same time.
Yes. They must have been on drugs or something.
I need like some those wooden train tracks and some like trains.
Okay, why?
Because I need to have these guys recreate what happened to them when they got abducted.
There was train tracks involved?
No, there wasn't train tracks involved. There was, they were on a highway. We brought over, thanks bro, you want to show them what you brought over so they can recreate kind of the bus here and some, this probably isn't like your Geo.
We were driving underneath. We were like this after we had gotten coffee and we were wide awake. And we like to talk, so we were just having a conversation. As we were driving, it's like we were approaching the underpass, and for lack, it was.
So
This will be the underpass.
Okay, great.
Let's see. We were going underneath it, and then I blacked out. I remember being conscious enough to see, we were driving and I knew that the underpass was coming up and I could see it. I don't quite remember how far under, like we were like coming up to it, and that's about as much as I remember. And then I went off planet with Andy.
When they took us out of the craft at first, they took us out together and we were still face to face.
Then all of a sudden you were on a spacecraft?
It's unbelievable.
They can take you out of a moving car and put you back in.
These guys are crazier than I thought. I'm trying to take this serious, but man, I just want to laugh sometimes because it's so stupid. I mean, they sound like crazy people. Pulled out and then onto a spaceship. They can't be serious. The moment anyone says the word UFO, I immediately think of little green men, tinfoil hats, nothing all that serious. But I decided if I were to really try and understand Avi and Philly's story, I needed to do some digging. June 24th, 1947, Kenneth Arnold, an American aviator businessman, was flying near Mount Rainier in Washington state. He was searching for a transport plane that had gone missing in the area. He ended up seeing something extraordinarily strange, a series of 9 unusual objects flying in a V formation. He estimated the speed to be about 2,700 kilometers per hour, which was 3 times faster than any aircraft at the time. He described them looking like saucers skipping on the water. The news of the sighting suggested that he saw things that looked like flying saucers. The misquote turned the word flying saucers into a household name. As a result, sightings were coming in from all over the world, claiming to have seen these flying saucers in the air. In fact, there were over 853 flying saucer reports in 1947. In 2015, the Department of Defense released 3 declassified videos showing U.S. Navy pilots encountering what appears to be UFOs. In a bizarre turn of events, it took a global pandemic to shed even more light on a supposed UFO cover-up. In 2021, the U.S. issued a COVID-19 bill, and strangely, buried in the pages was a call to release a report on UAPs. As a result, the military began talking about UFOs and UAPs as possible threats to public safety. Are these 3 videos the only videos that you know of the United States government has that shows these unidentified aerial phenomena?
No, absolutely not. These are probably some of the least compelling videos. In some cases, we've seen these things 50 feet away from the cockpit.
So what could they tell from being 50 feet away from it?
With all due respect, I no longer work for the United States government in that capacity. So I want to be clear that I don't want to speak on behalf of the U.S. government. I was asked to do a job, which I did. However, it was my understanding of the conclusions that I came to, and by the way, every other person in the program unanimously came to the realization that these things are indeed real. Over the past several decades, we in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community have been noticing things in our airspace that don't have wings, they don't have cockpits, they don't have even an obvious sign of propulsion like an engine, and yet still they're able to defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity. It's getting increasingly harder to keep the cat in the bag.
This was the first time the U.S. government had ever acknowledged the existence of such videos. So what is a UFO? It's an unidentified flying object, a term coined by the U.S. Air Force in 1953. They used it to describe any aircraft that could not be easily explained or identified. A 2019 Gallup survey showed that 33% of Americans believe that aliens and UFOs have been visiting planet Earth, and nearly 50% believe that the US government has been hiding information from all of us. There have been over 90,000 UFO sightings since 1905. That's an average of 6 sightings per day. And to add, every day, FAA, Air Traffic Organization, provides service to more than 45,000 flights here in the U.S. The FAA reports there is as many as 5,000 flights in the sky above the U.S. at any given minute. They also report that here in the U.S. alone, there are over 16 million flights per year serviced by 520 air traffic control towers and serviced by over 19,000 airports. They go further to report that there are over 167,000 fixed-wing aircraft, over 10,000 helicopters, and over 34,000 experimental aircraft here in the U.S. alone. Another consideration, the number of drones in the U.S. for recreational flying is estimated at around 853,000, and the commercial drone registrations are around 318,000. That's a total of over 1.7 million drones, and these numbers are just in the USA alone. Now, interestingly enough, most of these sightings happen on the weekends, and a time where most people are likely to be drunk. Most of the sightings occur during drinking hours. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody who believed they saw a UFO was wasted, but it's hard to disagree that the timing is unusual. The truth is that most of these cases where what they believed to be UFOs were actually planes or clouds, weather balloons, or even getting confused with bright planets.
Do you remember what the interior of the spacecraft looked like, or
Not much. I was focused on Andy.
Oh, so Andy was there with you?
Yeah.
Okay, so where was he?
He was right here.
So he was face to face with you?
And I could just, from my vision beyond him, all I saw was black. If it didn't happen to me, I wouldn't believe it either.
We were face to face, and we were in a very tight corridor. We were so close that our eyes were looking at each other's pupils.
Why would they have picked you guys?
Well, because we're the type of people to get it done, maybe. When you sit around and you say to yourself, wow, we're carrying something that we're not supposed to give directly to our government because the people won't find out. The people are supposed to find out. Now, when you start thinking that, and you try to go to the grocery store and lead a normal, happy life, well, then you can become very unhappy and unsettled because you haven't found the person you trust. You call some people with this kind of information and they run away. You find others and they laugh about it, say, yeah, I saw a UFO, man, but try to find some help. try to find some answers.
2004, off the coast of California, an F-14 super training exercise was suddenly interrupted by a call over the radio that would come to define Commander David Fravor's career.
It's honestly the strangest, most obscure thing I've ever seen flying.
Fravor, a commanding officer of the Navy Strike Fighting Squadron 41, and another F-18 scrambled to check out an unusual radar blip 80 miles off the coast.
As soon as we look down, we see the white water, and then we see this little white tic tac. It's just going forward, back, left. It's like ping pong, like a perfectly smooth white tic tac. 1 minute it's there, and the next second, it's like magic.
Its ability to move, to shoot off, to move at a 90-degree turn at unimaginable speeds. These tic-tacs, by the way, there were multiple, many of them. They were descending from above 80,000 feet, which is the height we know, because that's the scan volume of the Spy 1 radar, down to sea level in less than a second and a half.
I wanted to start just by talking about some of the released Pentagon information and the documents. There's some photos and some video that were released. Do you guys have any thoughts about that? Did you watch that on TV?
Well, it's pretty lightweight in the sense of things shared to the committee. What I found interesting, they want to know, of course, who's flying them, which there's a debate about. And then they wanted to know, do they pose a threat? I think history shows they haven't attacked anything yet.
Yeah, exactly. When you guys had your experience, did you feel like there was any kind of hostile energy or anything like that in your experience?
No, we were almost like we were trained for it, and they were our friends.
When you hear politicians, and people from the Pentagon talking about, like, they seem concerned about public safety from some of this. Does that jive with anything that you experienced?
Well, I've read and I've watched a lot of UFO literature as well as YouTube videos, and the rare case of a physical contact with a craft, most of them are people dreaming, waking up in the middle of the night. That's not something physical, right? Or they came and took me out of my bedroom. Well, it sounds more like a dream. How can they walk through a wall, on a second floor? You know what I mean? We witnessed no weapon systems on the crafts. They're not here to take us over. I don't believe there's any hostility. There's nowhere on the craft for a weapon, and I don't think there's any way for them to fire a weapon without endangering the craft. We were on about a 50-foot flying saucer twice. When they fire up, they kind of go up on an angle. We were lying along an edge so that when it angled up at 45 degrees, our heads were above our feet. We humans need our blood to run a certain way, and apparently they do too. When you're in the craft traveling, it just feels kind of like you're sliding down like sideways down some crack into another dimension. That's the best way I can describe it. The craft doesn't even move. Instead, the universe moves to it. And at low speeds, they look very unstable, but at high speeds, they just go veer off in a straight line. They want to know who's flying the craft. So this is a picture of an alien that we received from them when we asked. The government's not being honest about it, saying, it might be the Chinese, it might be the Russians. I think they're withholding a lot of things from us.
If the government asked to talk to you, would you talk to the government about your experience?
Sure, as long as... Well, she's afraid.
You won't. Why wouldn't you, Philly?
I don't like talking about it. I really don't. It's affected me so greatly. It's uncomfortable to talk about.
It might be also, she doesn't want to be interrogated by some suits, and made feel.
No, that's not it.
Okay, well, the reason why we didn't reach out to the government and instead reached out to you and made this film, if there are others like us and they went to the government, well, what happened to them? You know what I mean?
You think that there have been people that have gone to the government that have been knocked off or disappeared?
We don't think that, but we're I was a Boy Scout. Be prepared. You know what I mean? So we're not willing to take that chance until we've gone public, and then people can ask, what happened to AV and Philomena if we do disappear? We're under the impression that what the Pentagon has shared are some very select cases. If these things are always seen around our nuke silos, obviously they don't want a nuclear war. If they can freeze time like they did with me and Philomena when they took us out of the car, they can basically disarm the nuke and take off, and nobody will know they're even there.
In the Pentagon briefing, there was an Air Force commander who described the UFOs as tic tacs. Does that seem like a pretty accurate description in terms of what you experienced?
Well, we were in a saucer, and a saucer shape could look like a tic tac if it had its own gravity, right? I mean, a tic tac, it looks like the edge of a saucer. We didn't see another ship flying next to us. When I was in the craft, looking through the side of the craft, I saw like star fields going by. Now, there's another thing, when they fly, they pulsate like a beat, like a rhythm, just a little bit of dun, 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 and it feels like you're sliding down the craft. So maybe they're just sitting in one spot and stuff's coming to them. But did you experience something?
Yeah, similar.
Kind of just like a rocking feeling while you're sliding. Philly doesn't like to talk about it, but she's willing to share it, which she's done in this film.
Now I can see past her, and I can see stars going on because I'm looking at the outside edge of this craft.
And everything behind him is black.
We were like crammed in, like this. Like this. We're like this.
I hate PDA.
Okay.
Well, this is just reenactment.
I wasn't allowed to see much.
Because she's looking at the inside of the craft, okay? So I'm watching these stars go by, and I'm seeing Philly smiling at me. And she's thinking, I can't believe this is going on. Can't believe. We had some telepathic ability which calmed each other down, like, hey, this is really happening, and we're okay because we're together.
Okay, I'm about to go down to San Diego and meet with my brother. I want to talk to him about this alien abduction, or alleged alien abduction. See what he thinks about it. He's one of the smartest guys that I know, and he tends to scrutinize absolutely everything that I do, so I'm sure there'll be some heavy scrutinizing going on in San Diego. I have no clue if he even believes in aliens or any UFOs or anything like that. So we grew up in New Mexico, right? Which is like the home of aliens.
Yeah.
Area 51, Roswell.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like, if anybody knows about aliens, it should be us. Right?
No.
All right, you ready for this? There's a couple from Wisconsin that say they've been abducted by aliens.
Okay.
Do you believe in aliens?
I believe in that there's life on other planets. I'm not sure I believe in aliens.
Do you think it's possible that two people can be pulled out of a moving vehicle and brought onto a spacecraft?
I wouldn't think it's particularly likely. Here's the dilemma that I think lots of people who you would ask this to would be in. And the dilemma is, there probably is life somewhere else in the universe. If you think about just the sheer number of galaxies, and you think about the odds of it, I think the conclusion is probably somewhere. So the problem is, if you go from that, which is that there might be, and you ask the question, well, do you think somebody got abducted? Then you start to think, no, probably not. That seems kind of weird and far-fetched. But if there is the likelihood of life somewhere else, maybe it's not as impossible as you think, which makes me feel like a total loon to say out loud.
My brother does have a point. You know, if there really are like that many stars, that many galaxies, maybe this isn't so crazy.
If you've ever been like medically induced somehow, like I don't, like after surgery or before, you know, like you just feel, I don't know.
When they put you under, you mean? Like under anesthesia?
Yeah.
Did you pass out?
No. I mean, not necessarily. No. It's too much to say. You know, it's hard for me to talk about this.
I didn't know who to tell. I got to work the next morning and I told my brother. He now has my job, okay? They had secret meetings, I'm out of the company, okay? You know, so you ask me, oh, I don't believe you, I don't believe you. Well, my whole life was wrecked for me, so screw you, don't have to believe me, okay? You just have to help us tell our story, okay?
All right, so I just got a text message from AV in Philly. They were back in the hotel, and the text message basically telling me to educate myself on the new Pentagon released footage and documents, I guess, that the government just recently released. Maybe they feel like I haven't done my due diligence and I'm asking them stupid questions. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna dig around YouTube and Google and see what I can find.
Because UAPs pose potential flight safety and general security risks, we are committed to a focused effort to determine their origin.
And is this one of the phenomena that we can't explain?
I do not have an explanation for what this specific object is.
In this newly released intelligence report, it mentions about 144 sightings of flying objects that can't be explained.
For too long, the stigma associated with UAPs has gotten in the way of good intelligence analysis. Pilots avoided reporting or were laughed at when they did.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
The long lights and it was spinning and it just and took off. And everything happened in less than 5 seconds and we all looked at each other and was like, and I know that it was a UFO. I don't care what anybody says.
I'm over there talking to my wife and she's like, what are you doing over there?
Are you telling us you don't want to do this? What are you telling us?
No, I'm not saying that I don't want to do it. I'm just saying that, like, you guys are kind of freaking me out a little bit.
If by making this film we find someone in our government that we could trust, that we could find out what did they program and what under hypnosis, what all happened, what the things we can't remember, we want to know, just like you do, you know.
Oh my God. Holy shit. I'm exhausted. Ever since I've been filming these guys, I've slept like absolute shit. I have the weirdest dreams, dreaming of aliens, UFOs. I just keep dreaming about this stuff. My wife's been taking the couch because I've been like punching things and kicking things. It's just crazy. I feel like I've been hit by a train. I don't know if it's like their energy that I'm like absorbing, or I don't know. I don't know if I believe any of that. I can't sleep. I feel like I've aged like 10 years since these two have come out here. This project's killing me.
I know the people that things like this have happened to will believe, okay? And those are the people we're doing it for. And I'm hoping they'll come out of the woodwork, because it's had to happen to more than me and Philomena. There are going to be people who believe this, and then there's going to be people who can help us, and there's going to be people who can bring this to light. If you don't believe it, it's fine. You know, we don't have time for people who don't believe. You know, we want to find the people that can help. It changes a lot of things on this planet. It's just
no walls or ceiling, just a machine and tubes, and we begin again. I love a falling star, that's what you are. Sometimes it goes way too far, it makes it hard to believe. They've been feeding me.
Andy, are you okay?
No, I'm letting you talk.
You're like
not
trying.
to say anything
I know. I've
influence you
noticed.
at all.
No, I'll talk to you.
I'm killing you.
I'm trying to let you talk, so I'm not influencing you in any way.
No, like I want to know what your perspective was, right? Okay, so what happened? Like did you guys pull over on the side of the road, or what?
We were driving, and then I just remember being up in the spacecraft. Like it was just, I don't, it was just so strange.
Okay. Was there like a large flash of light or?
I didn't see any.
When they were abducted, did time go by, or is the time still present? And like when they got home, was it like 6 hours later, or still the same time as they left?
Yeah, it's a good question. Just to be clear, on the first abduction, when you got home, you're saying that there was no, there weren't, even though Philly.
Believe that there would be time left.
Okay, so even though.
And to think about it, for it to work, there couldn't have been a time lapse. Because if there was, then the empty car would have hit the wall, right? Without us in it, you know, bam, and then the cops would have came by, and then the tow truck, and by the time we got back 2 hours later, they would have been gone, you know what I mean?
Our AV's like, what just happened? Tell me everything.
You guys had exactly the same...
Similar. It was similar. I was facing a different direction, so I saw black, like black colors, and I could see his thoughts, and yeah, it was similar.
And your clothes were...
On.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Did you party at the show?
No, I mean, no.
What does that mean?
No.
So, like, you guys weren't drinking or anything?
No, we weren't drinking at all.
No. Were you smoking weed at all? No. No, okay. So there was no, like, nothing, no substance going on?
No, definitely not. I don't do that.
AV, gotta ask you on record, anything in your system at that point?
I don't believe so. No, I might have been on an antidepressant Prestige.
People are automatically, they're going to jump to the drug thing with this.
No matter what you do, people are not going to believe, right? No matter what we say, right? I'm not really a big drinker. We usually have just a Bloody Mary once a week, or...
You like Bloody Marys?
Oh yeah, and old fashions.
Old fashions, cool.
Then after one, we realized we drank too much, but...
They make them stronger in Wisconsin. So.
The Bloody Marys or the old fashions?
It's not a big part of our life, cocktails. No, it's okay. Everything's okay. You know, we're good. We're a good couple. Okay.
You don't believe that aliens can pull somebody out of a moving vehicle?
No. And then put them back?
Yeah.
I think that they had something in their drink when they were at the gas station, the coffee. And they went crazy.
Is it possible that at the diner somebody could have drugged your coffee?
Oh no. It was a truck stop. I think there was one other table. It looked like a truck driver. The waitress was no, and then there was no connection to anything. I was an AV Super Sunshine.
Right.
I was a pencil pusher, Philomena. You know.
I don't like stuff in my coffee.
Yeah.
I keep an eye out for it. I'm kind of weird.
You know, it was one of these places where they bring you the coffee, they pour it, and they leave the pot. You know, there's no reason for them to drug us. There was.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
Listen, I think they're fascinating people. It's just far-fetched. What kind of car was it? A geo-tracker?
It's a trekker. Is it a tracker?
Is it a geo-tracker or geo-trekker?
A geo-tracker.
Can you be pulled out of a moving vehicle through the roof of a geo-trekker onto some kind of spacecraft?
That's the question. Maybe don't worry about whether you believe them or not, and just tell their story. Why am I always here?
Shut up.
No,
because I'm interviewing you.
You give me this, and how do you like being behind the camera? Listen, people are strange, right? They do all kinds of things for all kinds of reasons, and I think that's the interesting part of this.
We believe we're on the upper deck in this area.
It seems much smaller than I would.
Well, they're only like, they're not. They're little guys.
The type of alien AV described seeing during the abduction are referred to as greys, or Roswell greys. They're described as having small bodies with smooth, gray-colored skin and large hairless heads and large black eyes. The idea of the gray alien is commonly associated with the Barney and Betty Hill abduction claim in 1961. Similar descriptions appeared in the early accounts of the 1947 Roswell UFO incident, and later in the very popular Alien Autopsy video, a 17-minute black and white film supposedly depicting a secret medical examination of an alien by the United States military.
What is this? Now it's not showing up in my camera.
We're talking about an incursion of an unknown vehicle over a military base.
Please tell me this is the end of the world.
UFOs are real. Our government has told you that much. They said that there are machines, we can't duplicate their technology, and we don't know where they're from. There's no sticker, there's no tag that says made in China, made in Russia. We don't know. Here's the basics of it, man. One of the largest military bases on planet Earth, it's called 29 Palms out of California. It's a Marine base. Within 36 hours, I was able to find that there were 50 plus witnesses that claim to have seen a triangular shaped craft that was hovering over the base silently. It was not descending. It was just a craft. And when I saw the first images, it was kind of like black footage because you're filming at night on iPhones. And I was like, oh, those are probably flares. No problem. However, everybody was reporting to me that they saw the body of a craft. This is what we're looking at now. It's an interesting photo because with the low light function of the iPhone, you're able to make out what appears to be the actual shape of what was described verbally to me by some of these witnesses who went on record, by the way, and we played that audio on the Weaponized podcast.
Two nights ago, it was roughly like 8:25-ish at night. It was near 29 Palms, California.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the base at all, but Camp Wilson is attached to 29 Palms. So it's like a one-way road in and out of the camp.
One of my buddies was outside, and he was looking in the sky, and then it just kind of appeared out of nowhere. And we all came out and looked, and then slowly, like 50 plus people started coming out and looking. Those lights appeared out of nowhere.
Obviously, a lot of people saw this. What did people think?
They were just kind of like baffled. Nobody could recognize it. I mean, we're all in the military, so you'd think we'd...
This happened in a number of places. I've got reports from other people. They're coming in. The video you sent me, was that yours?
Yes, that was mine. That was from my iPhone.
And the photo, was that a still photo or pulled from the video?
No, it was a still photo. If you look in the picture, you can see like a black triangular shape.
Why are these not flares?
Because they stayed there for a solid 10 minutes, just in the same spot.
And flares don't sit in one spot for 10 minutes?
No, they fall.
So you personally know that these were not flares. Do you believe this was a craft?
Yeah, I would have to believe so. With the picture I took with the black triangular shape underneath the lights, it's definitely not any type of like flare or illumination rounds or anything.
So this was a craft. Was it hovering, stationary? Was there any sound?
Well, there was absolutely no sound.
No sound, but it was definitely stationary.
How big was it? Estimate to me, how big?
Compared to one of those stealth bombers, the size.
Well, hold on. Stealth bombers can't hover.
Exactly. That's why I can compare it to that, but that's how I know it wasn't that.
I would say the size of like 3-bedroom house. I don't know. Maybe bigger.
When it's depicted like in films and stuff, like there's these giant spaceships.
Yeah, well,
Right,
that's why Lazar called this a sport model. The diameter is only 52 feet, the whole diameter of the craft, and that about matches what they parked on at both at our house and what we remember under the underpass. Now,
Bob Lazar is primarily known for his claims of having been hired in the late 1980s to reverse engineer a UFO at a secret site called S4, allegedly located several kilometers south of the United States Air Force facility known as Area 51. He also claims to have read U.S. government briefing documents that described alien involvement in human affairs over the past 10,000 years.
What did it feel like to walk inside a flying saucer?
It was really more ominous than interesting. Everything is exactly one color. There is no sharp angle anywhere. Everything has a radius of curvature to it, as if somebody built this thing out of wax and then let it melt a little bit and then let it cool off.
United Nuclear, this is Zach.
Hi, Zach. How are you?
Doing well.
Is Bob there by chance?
No, he is not.
Okay. Maybe you can help me. I have a couple here that I'm doing a documentary on, and they were abducted by aliens in a sport model. They know all about Bob, and I know a little bit about Bob, and it would be amazing if we could get a little bit of information and some clarifications on like the sports model and what could have possibly happened.
He doesn't really offer comment on that anymore.
You're not Bob, right?
No, my name's Zach. I know I sound just like him, but I can assure you I am not Bob.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you sound just like him, Zach. It's crazy.
Yeah. I get that all the time.
So, yeah. Is there a way that, you can talk to them for a second?
No, I really have nothing to offer. As I said, what you really want is Bob. Yeah. Bob doesn't really speak on this matter anymore.
You say Bob doesn't want to talk about it. We know we don't like talking about it. It really brings up some bad memories and stuff. And we've looked on the internet. We can't find anybody who had an experience like us. Nobody. So it's scary for us too, okay? I can appreciate what Bob's gone through because we're going through it too, man. So, we're looking for a little bit of answers. He might be. We've been on a sport model. And it's everything he said. We experienced that way that craft moves. Maybe he wants to help people like us. Maybe he doesn't. Doesn't necessarily have to be in a film and have a comment on it. But maybe there's a hug we could give each other someday. We'll let you go and have a great day.
All right, you as well.
Okay, thank you. Bye now. And it was Bob. People tell me I sound like him.
You think that was him?
Yeah, that was Bob.
So, Amy, you actually think that was Bob?
Yeah, that's Bob.
So I woke up this morning thinking about the voice of Zach sounded so much like Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar has such a distinct, quirky voice. It's eerily close to the Zach voice. I had to do my own audio analysis to test the theory that we were actually talking to Bob Lazar and not Zach. So I'm first going to play you a piece of Bob Lazar on the Joe Rogan show, just to get you familiar with his voice. So here it is.
That prevented me from continuing on in the project. That to be on that cutting edge of technology is so alluring to me.
So now I'm going to replay you the piece of AV and myself talking to Zach.
No, I really have nothing to offer. As I said, what you really want is Bob. Bob doesn't really speak on this matter. No, my name's Zach. I know I sound just like him, but I can assure you I am not Bob.
So now what I did was I put a vocal effect on the Bob Lazar Joe Rogan piece to make it sound as close to a telephone effect as possible. This will give you a better idea of how close those voices really are. Now here's the real Bob Lazar.
That to be on that cutting edge of technology is so alluring to me.
So Zach.
No, my name's Zach. I know I sound just like him, but I can assure you I am not Bob.
Bob Lazar.
That to be on that cutting edge of technology.
Zach could be Bob Lazar. Tom DeLonge, who is one of the founding members of Blink-182, now heads to the Stars Academy, a group dedicated to the study of UAP technologies, and whose board includes an impressive list of ex-CIA, DoD, NASA, and Lockheed Martin skunk works, said this on Joe Rogan, which supports the frozen time claims made by AV and Philomena.
And they also time travel, which is different than what people think in like a movie where they sit in a machine and all of a sudden you're in the 1930s and you got to go save humanity. When you use the technology, there's a time difference between what they're doing inside of an artificially created bubble of gravity of sorts, and then what's on the outside. So if you're on the inside of one of those machines, everything would be skewed more black and white. There would be like a red shift, and everybody would look frozen. So you literally could fly around and grab a Coke out of someone's hand and put it in someone else's hand.
I decided to ask a few of my friends what they thought.
I mean, is it possible that two people could be pulled out of a moving vehicle?
No,
it's not.
I don't think so.
They got sucked out of the top of their vehicle and ended up on a spaceship together.
I fully believe in that because I know people that they went through similar stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Not like that, but in South America too. That they go into like empty roads for hours.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they get sucked in. They completely lose reference of time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they are in a different time zone or different space.
I remember off planet, hooked to machine, aliens, put back on the craft, flying back down. I had tubes hooked to me, just seeing stuff go by, just stars and stars and stars and stars. Something was coming into me. I felt like they were programming me. It feels like I'm carrying something. I've not been the same since.
You're here and he's here, and then you're just looking past the camera. I don't even want to say what I'm thinking, but like what I'm thinking is like, I mean, it probably didn't even happen, is what I'm thinking. You know what I'm saying?
That's what you can think.
I didn't even say anything.
I'm not telling you what to say. We were in a car,
but you are.
Something happened, and then we were in a car again. So you need to tell her from the time we were in the car, coming to a bridge, and blacking out.
She mentioned nothing about a bridge.
And then she tells you later the concert ended at 11:15. The restaurant we went was a half hour away from the concert venue. We didn't even get there, according to her story, till 11:45, which is probably right. And I said we left sometime after midnight. And so the abduction happened on the next day. We just need to talk it out, and I'll go
talking
disappear.
about it means corroboration.
No.
And that's not what we want to do.
If you say, Philomena, tell me, from the time you left the diner in order, everything that happened in the order you remember it, then you're going to get it. But
No, I won't get it. Because there's no mention of like any underpass, there's no mention of
I'm
like...
not as detailed as Andy.
If I rewind this, you'll see that she says she doesn't remember almost anything.
I wasn't allowed to see much else.
You can't give her the answers, bro.
I'm not giving her the answers.
Okay, but you're...
Am I giving her the answers? There's no answers I'm giving her. I'm just telling her to tell her from
But why are you afraid to?
Because I don't want to be perceived a certain way. People already don't like me.
This is coming across as you're panicked that the lie is up.
There's no lie.
I know, but that's what it feels like, right? It's like, oh my God, like you guys committed murder, and then all of a sudden, like she's like, well,
she. You want me to get into a panic attack? So
no, I don't. No, I don't.
Actual panic attack.
Nobody wants you.
Go for a walk, and I'll talk to her, and then I'll. Okay.
Walk, whenever it comes out, it comes out.
Okay. All right.
Please just tell them everything you remember. Okay. Okay.
Bye.
I'm just so scared.
Why?
Well, there's have people not like me. You know what I mean?
Why don't people like you?
I'm not sure because I'm different. I don't know.
There are people that actually don't like you back at home?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you know they don't like you?
Long story, I don't know.
Long story?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does that bum you out?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty brave of you to even want to do something like this. I mean, this is, can you imagine the kind of shit you're going to get?
I've gotten so much already, so it doesn't matter. I just want it out there.
Have you ever seen a therapist before?
Yeah.
Or have you talked to the therapist about this?
No, never. Never talked to anyone. So it's
Why did you go to therapy?
because of my like a past thing.
Nothing we can talk about? No? Okay. You were on the other side of the camera, or you're in the movie theater, or you're watching on Netflix, and you've rented a film called Alien Abduction, or whatever this could possibly be called, right? Is there any part of you that would be watching this and feel like, you know what, this really happened?
It's so real. I don't...
This is your chance, right, to like
I know,
get it out
it's so
there.
hard.
I know,
It's so
but you have to somehow get to a place, you know, emotionally, that you can go there and really paint the picture of like what this was like. I mean, otherwise, this will be it'll be a joke.
I know, and I don't want that. Like, it's in my head, and I want to say, you know, and it's... Something's just holding me back.
What do you think's holding you back?
I think it's the perception of what people think. So...
What did you see a therapist for? You think that could that be what's holding you back?
Yeah.
Well, maybe if we talk about that, maybe that'll unlock kind of what's going on with the UFO. Want to try?
Sure.
Okay. So, what did you see a therapist for?
Well, I was...
You were abducted another time also?
Yeah, together.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, we fell asleep on the couch. We have a sunroom, and what I remember the most from the second time was getting burned.
You got burned?
I did.
Okay, where?
On my finger.
Show me.
It's gone.
What finger?
Just one of the middle ones, and I have a picture of it on my computer.
Oh, okay. I definitely want to see that at some point. Did you bring that with you?
I believe so. We have to look.
So what burnt you?
The reactor. I was talking to like an alien in my mind, and it was... They told me not to touch anything, and I did anyways. I don't know why.
How bad did it burn you?
Just like a bump, you know, and that like it pulled up. It was like a raised bump. It hurt when it happened, and it hurt when I woke up, but it went down maybe like a day or two later.
You didn't go to the doctor or anything?
No, I would never.
What?
How would I explain that?
How were you sure that this wasn't like an alien abduction? Like, couldn't it have been something else?
What would it be?
Well, could you have just fallen asleep and you dreamt it?
No, it's just not possible.
And your finger like was on something that was in the living room, or?
Well, no, there was nothing in the living room, in the sunroom. There's nothing there to be burnt on, and the cat besides.
Your cat got burnt?
Yeah, like you know the cattle when they brand cattle.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like that, and we do not do that. We don't harm animals.
Your cat got branded?
Well, that's the way I took it as. It got burned, though. It did get burned.
Did it make
But it looked like a brand.
Did you take pictures of the cat?
I did, but they were blurry.
Okay, could you
Because we
tell?
were in a screwed up state when we got back to our home. So I wasn't thinking. So then we took it the next day, and it was... I have pictures of those, too.
Okay, I'd love to see
not
those.
Worth it.
Are
They're
they
pretty blurry.
You can't really tell.
I can show you, but I have them.
You don't have them with you?
I have to look.
What's the age difference between you two?
What, a year or two? She's more mature
Mentally
than me.
or physically? Just
You don't have to answer if you don't want
I'm
to.
just kidding. It's like, what is it, like 28?
28, okay.
Yeah.
Has there been challenges, Philly, like dating somebody that's so much older?
Yeah, you get perceived a certain way by other women. You know,
Like-
a lot of, you know, you get perceived as a gold digger or something. But
Where and when you met AV?
I met him when I went to work
This is at his dad's company.
in Andy's company. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I noticed him right away because of his personality. It's just, you know. So you know, he's a nice guy, and I knew him for a long time before we started dating.
Who asked you out?
He asked me.
Do you remember what he said?
Yeah, he's like, hey, I'm going to Madison, do you want to come with? I'm like, okay.
So you guys drove to Madison?
Yeah, and we went to some recording studio, and they had a party there. So.
What was the conversation like in the car on the way to Madison?
It was pretty natural.
Why did you take her there?
Well, because they were having a party, and I was doing some recording there, so I figured she'd want to go, and I blew her away first date.
Yeah.
Just you were enamored with him.
Yeah.
Love, a holiday. Love, a game we play. Love, a word we say. Love, it's New Year's Day, so hang on, hang on.
Were the guys that you liked before, were they musicians also?
No, not at all.
He was the first
Once
musician?
you go musician, you never go back. I'm just kidding.
How long have you guys been playing golf?
Well, I've started about 20 years ago, and Philly started about 7 years ago, 5 years ago.
You guys play together? You guys go out?
Yeah, it's fun.
It's one of the things that you guys do together?
Sure, yeah.
You don't strike me as golfers, you guys.
I was a severe abuse victim, okay? And my abuse happened before I knew Philomena. And I have 3 children prior to Philomena, and they witnessed my abuse.
Abused by who?
Well, I was abused by my ex-wife. I don't like to talk about it in front of Philomena because we have our own life now, and that, like,
Okay.
I mean, that abuse doesn't.
Yeah.
But
You can talk about it. It's okay.
Yeah, but
if you want to, I don't care.
yeah.
Really.
How long did that abuse last?
About 25 years. It sent me to the emergency room 3 different times, and the attempts on my life are in the 20s. She once punched me so hard that it pushed my teeth through my chin. So there's a scar here that I wear a goatee over. I got a knife wound here. You see that? That was from grabbing a knife that was coming at me. I've got other scars, knife scars and things on my body. I've got broken ribs. I've got everything.
How does somebody stay in an abusive relationship for 25 years?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I thought things would change, and I had kids. You know, and I was afraid. I actually thought that if I was taking the punches, they weren't. If that makes sense.
This is not really a story about alien abduction. This is a story about a couple who have gone through an incredible amount of abuse in their lives. I can't even imagine how the brain tries to make sense of those events. It seems like this alien experience has somehow contributed to the processing of those events. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. My mom's a psychologist. They don't know that you guys are here, so they may take this.
They may not like that.
Right, they may not like this.
I'm a much more open person than my husband. Roswell and crop circles and all kinds of things.
They weren't interested in doing anything at the Harvard Library or MIT. They went to Wisconsin. I mean, seriously.
And we're married, folks.
Seriously.
Nothing that they could say that would persuade you.
No.
I just got a text message from them saying that they're in the car. So I'm going to tell them.
How many years away do they?
Jeff, not funny, Jeff. Hey guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you. I got some friends here that I want you to meet.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hey, Philomena.
Hey, how we doing?
Meet Elise and Jeff. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Elise.
Very
nice to meet you, Jeff. I could see like bubbles coming in and out of these tubes, like particles, like electrons.
How many of them were there? Do you?
If you ask me, I sensed about 6 in the physical vicinity.
I didn't sense many. I just saw black.
Just black?
Yeah. No.
We had some telepathic abilities to sense that each other was okay. You know, we could hear each other kind of saying what's going on, you know. You know, like when you do Skype, you're both like just your heads, you know. So it was like that, but instead of like one person, it was.
Were you frightened? Were you in touch
Well,
with?
we were pretty sedated. It was like an unreal thing, and just knowing that she was remembering it and conscious too, and her knowing that I was conscious, was a big relief.
Mm-hmm. They never go to MIT. They never go to the lawn at Harvard. Harvard has a beautiful square. They never go where there'd be mines that could. But they decide that Area 51 and Roswell and up in Wisconsin, it just defies imagination, defies reason. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Most of the stuff you see on YouTube, they always end up having sex with the aliens, you know. You know, and it's like, oh, come on, you know. The girl gets, she has a dream that she got abducted and she gets raped. There's even a guy in the Amazon who claimed that he impregnated an alien, you know, and he was all stolly about it, you know. So there's all these guys who say, oh, well, they had a female alien come, you know, and this is like weird dreams, you know.
How long are you married, you two?
Over 2 years. Yeah, 2.5.
Very sweet. We're married 35.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
It's something.
Yeah.
You could talk to him all day long. You could see. We even went to the UFO bar, the number 2 hot spot in the whole country for seeing UFOs. Nobody's been abducted. You know.
There's not any shred of evidence for any of the hocus pocus, any of the woo-woo stuff. I recommend The Amazing Randy, I recommend Houdini, all the people that spend all their time debunking these people. There's fascinating documentaries of real people debunking all this nonsense.
I just thought that you guys would have a conversation. I didn't think it was going to end up like that.
No, it was fine. It was fine.
Because I know
like we were defending, you know, nothing. We were abducted. I don't know why I don't want to go to MIT, you know. But don't tell me that they're taking people everywhere in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Montana and all these other. They're not. They're not taking anybody.
And they just happen to have the same saucer-shaped frisbee that everyone else does.
Aren't you used to getting that kind of?
No, we don't talk to anybody. My best friend that I play guitar with every week, I never told him this story.
Oh, so you just told a stranger that?
We don't walk around spouting this. This is the time. This is the time to record it. Nobody in our town. Can you imagine when this comes out? You know.
Well, are you prepared for that?
Well, that's why we're hoping you do a job, you know.
But
there's
yes, we're prepared for it.
But there's going to be guys like Jeff all over the place. Well, they're going to have exactly. It doesn't matter what you say.
No, you're right. You're right.
And so if you're not prepared to take the heat for that.
Well, it doesn't make
the
us.
Right thing.
Philly is making some good point. Just because we're not an expert, we don't know what they want. If somebody wants, if you could find a safe place and have us deprogram, maybe you'll find that out. Maybe we're walking around with it.
But dude, you got it. If you don't have thick skin for this, dude,
I'm a severe abuse. They picked a severe abuse victim at the height of his his PTSD, anxiety. I was like number 10 on the severe depression scale. She doesn't like me to talk about it,
Well,
you know. You don't have panic attacks, and I do.
do.
Okay?
You start rambling.
Here, turn off the camera once.
Why?
Oh, I just need you to turn it off. I swear that they opened the top of that Geo and to place us. It was like I was in the car, but I was out here. And then when they put me in, when my person that was outside the car matched the person that was inside the car, bam! We were driving at 65 miles an hour, and the lights were gone. It was dark. There was no traffic. There was nobody. And we were headed for this wall. And I'm looking at it, and I can't move anything. My arms just steered the car. My legs worked the clutch and gas, and we did an S-turn, and then we came up on 2 wheels. Just missed the guardrail cement on the left side of those 2 lanes. Came out of that thing, then going this way, and slowly tapered up and then went straight. The first thing I thought was, they did it under the underpass so nobody could see it with a satellite.
Military pilots have reported bizarre aircraft popping up around sensitive national security sites.
They followed it, and then suddenly it would move in a direction faster than anything that they had ever seen.
We don't know who they are. We don't know what it is. It isn't ours.
This could be the work of an adversary like China or Russia. They could be spying on us.
That's what we're most afraid of, the Chinese grabbing us. That's why they came back the 3rd time. A warning.
The technology we witness, with the performances we see, it doesn't represent a technology and a physics that we have yet grasped as humanity on planet Earth.
Something there, we just don't know what it is. If there is an adversary with that kind of technology, then we definitely need to be very, very careful.
It is their job, it is their duty to protect the American public. So there is this sense of national security. This is not ours. And that is haunting.
They picked us to help with the disclosure. We've tried to run away from it, and it always comes back. There's a lot more to be told that we don't know about, and if we can get that out of us somehow, I think we're both going to find a lot more peace.
If I set up a hypnosis session for you guys, would you go through that?
Yeah.
Philly, would you do a polygraph test?
No, they're not always that accurate.
I'm not opposed to it. You program us with a lot of stuff. So we've still got a lot to share.
AV, I love that shirt. Is it possible, right, that what you experienced could have been something besides what you're describing? Like, this didn't really happen?
If they had the technology to program my arms and legs to, when we were on a collision course with concrete,
right,
traveling at 65 miles an hour, well, what else can they program into me?
Were you ever hooked up to a machine?
Not that I remember.
How big were the tubes?
It's smaller in diameter than my pinky. If I was to say about a 1/4 inch diameter, like this, is that about a 1/4 inch? If that was circular.
Okay, so
and then
Philomena says the tubes were much wider and much bigger than that.
I could see the tubes coming out.
Was anything hooked up to you at all, or?
Not up to me, but to Andy there were.
What was hooked up to Andy?
I could see some clear, like this tubing.
How wide, like with your finger, like how wide was the tube? You use your finger like this round, or?
Well, like kind of like this.
I go with Philly, and she comes back with, really fat tubing, and I go with you the next day and you come back with like the head of a pencil tubing.
It wasn't head of a pencil tubing, it was the diameter of a pencil. That's like a huge difference. You're talking about this compared to that. What's the big difference, you know what I mean? That compared to that.
But you're saying what you just drew is the size of a pencil diameter? You think that's the size of...
Okay.
Well, that's not a pencil, but...
Well, it's about the size of a pencil, so that's about the diameter, right? And then that's a little bit bigger. But why don't you let her draw it, okay?
Well, I would.
Well, it's just... Well, I know what diameter they are.
Well, you just said that you did know. That's what I'm not...
I would say that they were about the size of a pencil from my vantage point. Okay. Now, if I got down off the machine and walked over and picked it up and
the size of a pencil, versus this. Versus this.
Well, that's what you told Philly they were.
No.
You put that in her head.
No, he doesn't have to put anything in my head. I know from what I saw.
Okay, so they're about that big, right?
It doesn't matter, yeah.
Or it matters if you guys are trying to sell the same story.
At the time, I'm looking at the aliens and I'm looking at the site. I'm not, how big is that cable?
No, but bro, she didn't even see any aliens.
I didn't either, except for on the screen.
No, but she didn't even see any aliens on the screen.
Well, because did she even see the screen? Could she even see it?
I don't know. Could you even see the screen?
It was black behind him, so no.
All right,
okay, whatever she remembers is what she remembers, okay?
Well, you guys were on there together. So
that doesn't mean that we were always conscious at the same time.
Are you sure that you saw tubes coming out of him?
I'm positive.
So you don't want to know what happened off planet. You only want to know about some tubes and a spaceship ride. But then you say, but what happened in between? And I try to tell you, and you say, oh, I don't want to know. And I'm telling you that they can take you out of a car while you're driving down the freeway. And you're concerned about the diameter of a tube.
AV and Philly decided to take a break from filming to allow Jared some time to decide if he wanted to continue on with the film. At the coffee shop, they received a text from Jared saying that he did not want them to come back that day.
And at the end of the day, nobody believes this film. It's because they don't believe me in Philly. It's not because they don't believe you. I don't know myself. Make up your own mind. I'm bringing it to you. Marlon Perkins, Mutual Omaha. Here's the tiger. You don't want to be in the room with this creature, but thanks for showing it to us, Marlon. I could go down the list. Ed Sullivan. Well, here's a new band, and they bombed. But you still like me. I'm Ed Sullivan. You're Ed Sullivan. We're the act that could bomb or not. Does that? If we are walking around with something, we should like to get rid of it and get it to the people it was intended for. If we're carrying some information, it wasn't for us.
I figured out why they're wearing those glasses.
Why they're wearing the sunglasses?
Yeah. On YouTube, I watched a couple of videos about body language, and it's scientifically proven that you start blinking a lot faster when you're lying. So I think it's a little bit suspicious that they have fully shaded glasses on. Either they're completely lying or they're just really high.
After trying multiple times to connect with AV and Philly, Jared received the following voice message.
Jared, we decided to head back home. Sorry, man. It was getting too much for us and starting to stress us out to the point of panic attacks. We're sorry, but I hope you understand how hard this has been on us. We will call you when we get back home. Peace.
After spending the next few days trying to decide if he wanted to do the film, Jared got the following video sent to him from AV.
Hey Jared, something really weird's happening to the Geo. I want you to take a look at this video. If you take a look, all of the painted metal surfaces on the Geo that were facing the flying saucer that was parked at the underpass where we were abducted, all the paint is, it's kind of melting into a translucent clear coat. It's like the color, the pigment has come off. You can see there's no rust on the parts where the metal now can be seen through it. Other parts kind of glow, as you can see on this part of the video. But it's really concerning. We've got it parked as far away from the house as we can. But that has prompted me to make this video, man.
Well, here's one thing they have lied about. For decades, like more than 70 years, the truth about those lights you see in the sky. They've just started to tell a small part of the truth. The Pentagon was forced to acknowledge that UFOs are in fact real. You're not crazy for knowing that. But they still can't explain them or discuss what these might be. We spoke to a retired Navy pilot who gave his assessment of what these objects are capable of.
We got the footage that you see on the Tic Tac video, which is it's about 40 seconds to a minute long, and that's when it darts off to the left of my scope, and we couldn't find it again. The Princeton radar was clean.
Halfway through the intercept, Underwood realized that his electronic surveillance systems were being jammed.
Offensive jamming or active jamming, they're kind of one and the same. At first, I didn't see anything unusual, unnatural. It wasn't until it started jamming that's when things started to be unusual.
Now, that film was from a prime time broadcast on a major network just the other night. And if you watch any of the Pentagon stuff, they're also saying these things are real. UFOs and UAPs are real. Now, that pilot said when he got his craft near the UFO, his navigation system got scrambled. Now, that is what me and Philomena experienced something similar. When we got near the underpass, we got scrambled. Everything got scrambled. Everything started acting weird. We believe it's because these crafts with this technology can alter time, okay? Just like Bob Lazar and Tom DeLonge say, and other people have been near these crafts and know something about them. Anyways, so I'm taking the sunglasses off, and we're gonna get real, and we're gonna do our best to try to tell our story, okay? And what I want to do is I want to start with a clip from American physicist Michio Kaku, and he's a theoretical physicist, and he studied the Pentagon data, and this is what he had to say during a Joe Rogan interview.
We now have frame by frame an analysis of these objects. These objects travel between Mach 5 and Mach 20. That's 20 times the speed of sound. These objects can zigzag, and we can measure the g-force inside this object. The g-forces are several hundred times the force of gravity. In other words, any living person's bones would be crushed by these objects.
Philomena and I felt no effects of g-force during our ride in the flying saucer. In fact, just the opposite. A very smooth ride, as reported earlier, like sliding down a crack into another dimension is the best way we could describe it. Now, if the craft was making right angle turns or zigzagging, we couldn't feel any effects of that. I've got now 2 clips of Bob Lazar, one from 1989 and one from just recently, where he describes possible reasons why we had such a smooth ride inside the craft.
Craft generates its own gravitational field. Being inside that field doesn't shield you, but essentially you're in, and this is a terrible way to say it, almost in a different realm, because you're now influenced only by that gravitational field. For instance, people wonder how a craft like this can make a turn at such high speed, a 90-degree turn, when they would imagine people slamming up against the wall or something to that effect. Well, that really wouldn't happen. Inertia would have no effect. You're in a distortion, and don't forget that gravity distorts time and space, so really nothing is going to influence you while you're in there.
What Commander Fravor saw as he was in the F-18 approaching it, he described it as a ping pong ball in a cup and shaking it back and forth. It was moving that fast. Now, obviously, if there's anything inside there, it's going to be battered to hell. But either there's a gravitational envelope in there which negates any inertia effects, or you are seeing through a gravity distortion field And the craft may not actually be moving like that. It may just look like it. So it may be making much more gentle moves.
Philomena and I were in what Bob refers to as a sport model, which is a 50-foot saucer, approximately 15 feet tall with 2 levels. In these next clips, Bob talks about the different craft that he saw while working at S4 in Area 51. As well, he describes how these crafts operate.
Their shapes vary. I give everything nicknames there. The one I worked on was kind of sleek looking, and I gave it the name the Sport Model. There was one that looked like a Jello mold. There was one that looked like a top hat. There was a disc that was turned up on its side, and it had a large projectile hole with the metal bent outwards on it. I had to hang upside down in there to see the lower level, essentially. And there were 3 large gravity amplifiers. These devices looked like about a 2-foot diameter, 4-foot long piece of pipe hanging by a smaller piece of pipe from the level above, and they can be independently positioned. And that's what emits the gravitational waves that propel the craft. The second level was the only other level that I was on. It was the main level. That contained the reactor where the seating was. It would be extremely inconvenient for a human pilot. Humans really can't even function in there because of the ceiling clearance. The seats were so tiny. It was obviously made for a creature much smaller than a human. In the air, we envision thrust or some force coming out the back of it to push it forward. The crafts work completely opposite of that. What they do is once they're hovering in the air, they'll swing the 2 remaining gravity generators up in front of them and create a distortion, essentially a downhill, and the craft rolls downhill for infinity. It's always chasing a little distortion. That's why they look goofy when they fly around at low speed.
Now we know how they can distort time. Now let's go back to Michio, who's going to tell us more of what these crafts are capable of, based on the information that he got from the Pentagon.
These objects can drop 70,000 feet in a few seconds. Think about that. It can drop a tremendous distance in just a few seconds, and they also move without creating an exhaust. These are things that we can now document frame by frame looking at these videotapes. We're talking about objects that defy the known laws of aerodynamics with a technology beyond what we have today. Whose are these things if they're not the Chinese, the Russians, or the United States? These objects create no sonic boom. When you exceed the sound barrier, you create a gigantic boom that is then shatters windows and can be heard miles around. These objects can effortlessly break the sound barrier and not create a sonic boom. So either they're an optical illusion of some sort, or they have a set of laws of physics beyond what we can muster. Who has this capability? And the answer is, we don't know.
It's gray aliens. It's grays. That's who's flying these crafts, okay? That's what I saw on the screen. That's what I've got a picture of. It's grays. Philomena and I encountered grays. Here's what Bob has to say about some photographs he saw while working at S4.
1 or 2 autopsy photographs I saw dealt with just a small photograph, a bust shot essentially, just head, shoulders, and chest of an alien. Chest was cut open in a T fashion and 1 single organ was removed. From that photograph, it looked like what you see in UFO lore as the typical gray. I would imagine it was 3.5 or 4 feet tall.
That description sure sounds like our guys. Here's our photo again. Now, after the first abduction, Philomena and I wanted to know what happened. We were looking for some kind of answer, some similar experience from someone else. So we started looking at UFO and abduction videos online. The first one that made any sense to us was by Boyd Bushman. It's referred to as his deathbed confession because there's only this video where he talks about aliens. But Boyd was a senior scientist at Lockheed Martin who claimed to have access to Area 51 and these vehicles. As you can see by this document I got off the internet, he did have top secret clearance. Another thing is he had dozens of patents with Lockheed Martin. A simple search online will bring those up for you. But here's some examples. In the video, Boyd tells the story from the pilot who shot down the Roswell craft. As far as I've been able to find, this is the only video where he talks about UFOs. However, the original video was taken off of YouTube. I found this copy. The audio's not too good, but here goes.
A pilot who was a test pilot, a Navy test pilot for the United States government. And it was 1947. The radar group had found a blip out over New Mexico, and he got the fastest airplane that existed then, and he found the item, and he immediately communicated back, do I have authority to shoot it down? He says, because I am flying the fastest thing that the United States can make, and he's beginning to leave me. And if he's leaving me, he's an enemy. He granted him authority. He pulled in, he shot him down. He came down, he flew past and saw that there was a road on the one side of a fence area. Down and landed his airplane, and then he cut across the fence. The door was open. One of them was out walking around. So he went over, and rather strangely enough, when he ducked down, because they were only 5 feet high, he saw that he could see through the walls. He stepped in, the floor was spongy. He looked at the 3 that were there, and they were dead. He knew they were. He'd killed them. But he also knew that the military would come, so he went over, got in his airplane, and took off. Therefore, he was never briefed out at all what his name was. I know, but I won't reveal it.
Now, what struck me the most was the pilot said the floor was spongy and he could see through the walls. And I was wondering for a long time, how can I see through the walls of the spaceship while we're flying through space? Well, that's why it really freaked me out. Our first abduction happened under an overpass on Wisconsin I-41. Shortly after 12 a.m., the morning of April 16th, 2012. It was the Highway 144 exit, which leads into West Bend, Wisconsin. This is also the exit for the southern tip of the Kettle Moraine State Forest, a Wisconsin hotspot for UFO sightings. We were in the right lane, traveling northbound, when we blacked out as we entered the underpass. Multiple craft were used to freeze time, take us off planet, and bring us safely back. Just a few miles from downtown West Bend, Wisconsin. This is the place where they froze time.
So now we know the U.S. military has seen these things, well, pretty much every single day. And not just the U.S. military. Since everyone in America now has a video device in their pocket, we have evidence coming in constantly, and it does seem to be accelerating. There seems to be a lot more sightings in the last year. Maybe we're imagining it, but it seems that way. The latest series comes from multiple witnesses in rural Wisconsin. Just the other night, the night of December 1st, several motorists and residents took video of what appeared to be UFOs, in some cases multiple UFOs, a cluster of 5 in a couple of cases, flying right above them. These objects were reported in West Bend, Wisconsin, Fredonia, Wisconsin, also in Howard, Wisconsin, more than 100 miles away from the first 2 places.
Multiple videos showing up to 5 separate UFOs in the sky at a time, filmed over West Bend, Wisconsin. It was his first abduction where they took Philomena and I off planet. That's when they hooked me to the machine, Philomena as witness. That's where they programmed me and where they broadcasted the event of me being programmed. Our second abduction happened at our home the morning of June 16th, 2015, between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Our mailing address is Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, but we actually live in the town of Chichita, which is just on the northeast edge of Fond du Lac and on the shores of Lake Winnebago, about 35 miles north of our first abduction site. We live right on the water. We have a 75-foot pier which has a platform on the end. They landed the craft in the shallow water right at the end of our pier. I doctored up this Google map to show you approximately how that craft would look, a 50-foot diameter saucer parked there at the end of our pier. I made this ice video so you could see where the edge of that craft would be in correlation to our shoreline. The water depth at the end of our pier is so shallow that on a strong south wind day, it pushes north, exposing the sandy lake bottom, making a perfect parking space to land a saucer. Philomena was asleep in the den and I was working on the computer. I had to go to the bathroom, so I got up, and when I did, I checked the time on the computer. It was shortly after 2 a.m. I went into the bathroom and sat down on the stool, and less than like a minute went by, and all of a sudden I was naked on the throne. I got up and I felt really weird. I went back to the computer and I checked, and it was slightly after 4 a.m. 2 hours had passed. Memories started coming back into my mind of what happened during those 2 hours, being on the craft, being at the end of the pier, being with the aliens. And I went into our living room and I laid down on the couch for a minute because I had to just collect myself. It was at that time Philomena got up. She came in and woke me up and said, "I burned my finger on the reactor in the flying saucer." I knew exactly what she was talking about because I was remembering it. And she said they laughed at her, which I remembered too. They thought it was funny. And anyways, it was a really bad moment. We believe there was a 2-hour time gap from the time they picked us up and dropped us off, because only one craft was used during our second abduction. Here's what Bob Lazar had to say about the reactor in 2 different interviews.
One of the reactors out of the crafts, which was an antimatter reactor, I was given a demonstration on how it worked, things that it did, and the physics of it. Barry showed me the reactor in operation. Here it is on the bench. And he said, try and touch the sphere on top. And you couldn't, your hand was pushed away. Just like, 2 light poles of a magnet. That's really shocking because nothing does that. That's an operating, powerful force field.
This is the same type of reactor that we saw in the craft on the second abduction, except the reactor cover dome was off and the reactor cap was exposed. Philomena reached out her hand to touch the cap, and a kind of a light beam jumped out and burned her finger. We were pretty dazed and confused after the event. We went to bed. The next morning when we woke up, we realized we should have took some pictures of Philomena's finger, which was pretty much healed. We did take some pictures, but I can't find it. I did find some pictures of the cat I took with the Canon camera, which I sent you earlier. They didn't turn out that well. However, I was going through my cell phone this last weekend, and I found some pictures I took on my iPhone. I took 2 pictures of sparkles with my iPhone. They turned out much better than the photos I took with my Canon camera, which I sent you earlier. When zoomed in, you can see surgeon-like incisions in her scalp where they probed her. These photos were taken about 6 to 8 hours after she was probed. Philomena and I remember the marks being much more intricate when we woke up right after the abduction, and they continued to heal very quickly. Unfortunately, Sparkles developed a very large tumor near her heart a few years after the event, which restricted her breathing and her ability to eat, and we had to put her to sleep. We really don't know if the alien probe caused the tumor, but we suspect it did. On our third visit from the aliens, they landed on the ice about 150 feet from our house. It was on Friday, December 21st, between the hours of 9 and 10 p.m. This segment right here is one of the hardest ones to do, okay? I was sitting in my music room, which overlooks the lake, and there was a flash of light out the window. And there's a glass partition between that room and the living room. And I saw probes go through the house. They were circular probes. And they went through like this. And they had like camera eyes in them. And there were about 24. About a third went up the stairs into the upper part of the house, and the others kind of disintegrated like they were holograms, or they buried themselves into the house. Now, after the first abduction, Philomena and I talked it out. Do you think they're going to come back? They think they're going to come back? No, this was a one-time deal. They're not coming back. That's what we kind of thought. But after the second time, we were like, they're coming back. At least for me, I knew they were coming back. So I wanted to be prepared. And one of the things I needed was some kind of proof. So I thought, well, I'll keep it real simple, and I'll just train myself that if they come back, I can get this out before they take over my mind or something. So I asked them for a photo, and I got one. The communication is with telepathy, thinking in your brain. It's kind of in the back of your mind. You can see what they're seeing and hear what they're thinking. Unfortunately, they speak in a language I don't understand, so I only get what they want me to understand. The next thing I did is I have this really bright, it's a diver's light, okay? And I went and grabbed this, and I went up onto our second floor balcony, and I went over the corner of the roof where I knew the craft had landed, and I aimed this right at the spot, like right at the spot. And this is what I saw. I was dead on. I mean, right on the spot. These are photos I took the day after, first thing in the morning. You can see the center ring where the main amplifier is positioned. The next ring you see is from the bottom of the craft and matches up with the proportion on Lazar's drawing. The third ring is just melted snow from underneath the sides of the craft. When it landed and it came back, it melted all the snow around it. But that part of the craft was 7.5 feet up in the air, so it wouldn't leave a ring on the ice, but the heat from it melted and made that. I've got some photos of me standing around on the ice in the same spot so that you can see that that's about a 50-foot ring there. I've also got some photos here showing a bunch of trucks parked in about the same spot. So you know that that area of ice definitely can support a flying saucer. Our neighbors weren't home at the time. It happened right in front of their house, kitty corner ours, so it was completely hidden from view from the street. Now to your neighbor guy who said, why Philomena and I, why not the physics department of MIT? First off, Philomena and I are two pretty smart cookies who are pretty well informed. The other thing is, Philomena didn't want me to bring this up. She didn't want me to give any publicity to that creepy guy. So I'm not going to mention any names, but MIT's physics department has clearly been compromised, okay? As you can see by these articles, as well as some other people, and who knows all else. So one thing for sure, me and Philomena are clean. Since the Pentagon release, there's been a lot of online articles about UFOs and UAPs. I like to go through the comments and see what the people are thinking, what they believe, and what they question. So I thought to close out, I would go through, I've gone through a couple thousand of these comments in the last few weeks, and I want to go through some common theme ones and give you some response. This is what the folks are saying. This first one is from AV8R. Of all the gin joints in all the towns, in all the worlds, in all the universe. Why fly into ours? There's definitely a vested interest here, but also something to consider is if you owned a saucer, you need a destination to go buzz. And why not the Earth? It's got to be a lot of fun. This one is from Adam, who basically says, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. Well, Philomena and I have, and it was unbelievable watching stars and planets going by. Adam, I hope you get a chance to do it someday. I really do. The next one is from Tracy, who comments, why are all UFO pics blurry? In this day and age and time, cameras nowadays are excellent. That's a good question, but unfortunately, even the photos and videos taken by our military aviators are blurry, and they supposedly have the best equipment. One reason is maybe because, as Lazar says, you're seen through a distortion, a force field of sorts around the craft that's hard to photograph. This next comment is from Oscar. He says, any foreign adversary with that technology would have already declared themselves the rulers of the world. Isn't that for sure? This one is from TM. It is alien, and the government is afraid to tell us. They're afraid of losing power. Think about it. If as a society, we all communicated telepathically, there would be no lies, no deception, and thus probably a big power shift, right? Gregory says, they hide this material because they want to weaponize this tech and do not want other countries to know what we have. Well, that's probably correct. Mike comments, there is evidence of something. If it's not aliens, then we should be really worried about who on earth has this technology. And that's another for sure. Bruce comments, if they meant harm, we would all be history. Maybe not, because they'd have to destroy our planet, and that might have consequences for them also. And finally, ULB says, they would never tell us if they were alien tech, since it would destroy our energy sector and our religion. There'd definitely be changes to the energy sector, that's for sure, but they would be for the good of the planet. As far as religion, the belief in God, both Philomena and I, after being around aliens, the concept of God makes even more sense to us. And we are closer to our religion because of our experiences. I don't know what else I can tell you to convince you that this is a film that needs to get done. And we really need your help. So please help us get this film done, okay? If you got any questions, call me, man. I'll talk to you soon.
So I just got off the phone with my mom, who happens to be a psychologist, and I've been telling her all about the aliens and the abduction and, you know, everything. Her reaction was interesting. She thinks that there's a possibility that they could be suffering from schizophrenia, or at least AV, possibly. So I'm going to Skype them and ask them, just point blank. It's going to rile them up probably, but could be fun. If you had ever been diagnosed with schizophrenia?
No.
Okay. One of the classic symptoms of schizophrenia is the idea that you think that there's something implanted in you and the need to get it out is like a classic symptom.
But there's 100 million suns just in our galaxy. Do you have any idea how many galaxies there are?
Oh no, a billion.
100 billion.
How do you know this information? What do you?
Because I have two kids and we talk at night and we think about these kinds of weird things. There's 100 billion galaxies with 100 million stars in each galaxy, and I don't know how many total that would be, but I think it's an almost incomprehensible number of stars. There are more galaxies than grains of sand on the Earth.
Where did you? That's ridiculous.
I think that's what it is. If you don't believe that there's life somewhere else, that's what you have to believe. That with all those numbers, there's nothing else. There's got to be life somewhere. And if you believe there's life somewhere else, how do we know what the heck it's like? I mean, can you imagine what it was like roaming the earth when there were dinosaurs? Do you believe there were dinosaurs? If I turned around and there was a T-Rex there, you'd think I was crazy.
Who am I to say that planet Earth is the only location of a life form that is civilized?
Okay, so follow me for a second. Let's just imagine that AV and Philly are actually telling the truth. They really did get abducted. The story that they're telling, it actually happened. It's the truth. Then what happens? Do we run to Walmart and get guns? Do we go back to the pandemic days and stockpile toilet paper and food? What do we do then? Do we freak out? Are we running through the streets, looking up in the sky, waiting for the aliens to come down? What happens? How do we react? What does it do to our psychology, to our day-to-day living? If the FBI, CIA, and the other governments from around the world, they all decide to tell us that what we had suspected the whole time, it's the truth, it's reality, then what? Maybe there is mass hysteria and craziness in the streets. It's certainly time, ladies and gentlemen, to think about the possibility that there are indeed alien life form out there, that they're visiting us, that they've been watching us. UFOs, UAPs, these things are real. They're really happening. You can't argue with that. We're seeing video evidence. There are things in the skies that we can't explain. These are likely not military crafts. So where are they coming from? Who's operating them? We need the answers. Listen, I thought they were nut jobs to begin with, but who's the nut job now? Me? For not believing them? Maybe.
The stigma is dissolving. It's fading because of fact. We now have data, radar, visual.
Generally speaking, when somebody talks about being abducted, I tend to think they're completely wacko. Maybe they're less wacko than we think.
What if this whole thing is real? Maybe they're not crazy. Maybe I'm crazy for not believing them. What if they are carrying something inside of them? What if we need to get that out of it? Like my brother said, I'm the storyteller. Right, so I've told you the story. You guys can decide what you want to do with it. I've watched hours and hours of Tom DeLonge, Bob Lazar. Everything they're saying jives with what AV and Philly are talking about. So either they've just memorized all those videos, or what they're talking about is real. Maybe I'm the alien. I feel so bad for winding AV and Philly up, but I feel like I just had to dig and keep digging on them, see if I can get them to turn against each other. They wouldn't break. They wouldn't break. They wouldn't break. What if the information gets in the wrong hands? What if the president found out? It could affect the world. Maybe they pick me for a reason. Maybe they're the ones that need to bring it to the government because the government needs to know. Maybe I'm the alien.
So the UFO presence on planet Earth is as real as the nose on your face.